Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fifth and final session for Kids Managing Conflict, third annual symposium, first one online. We are all super excited today because today we've been hearing all this information all week about peer mediation, and today we actually get to connect with some peer mediators and we get to hear about them and their experiences and their background. And so I expect it to be a really fun session today. I'd like to introduce Sally Patchen, who is the president of Kids Managing Conflict, and she will introduce our amazing panel today.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for our last webinar today. As Anne said, this is the one that we always wait for because we love hearing from the peer mediators. So we've got three awesome peer mediators, and we're gonna hear from them in just a minute. But first, I'd like to turn it over to Jason Harper, who will be our moderator for today. And I'm gonna read a short bio for him, but we are recording this, and all of the sessions for the week are going to be up on our YouTube channel, and we will also have them available on our website, probably starting next week. So without further ado, Jason Harper is our guy. Now, all I have to do is see where I put his bio. Here we go. Jason is the founder of Harper Conflict Resolution, LLC. He specializes in education and employment mediation, utilizing a collaborative approach. Most notably, Jason is the ADR consultant for the LA County Office of Education, providing mediation and conflict resolution services to 18 school districts and 27 charter schools. He is a lecturer in law at the USC Gould School of Law and an adjunct professor of mediation at Pacific Coast University School of Law. Jason has been recognized by the California State Senate and the United States Congress for his mediation training. Jason was the 2017 president of the Southern California Mediation Association and serves on the board of directors for Kids Managing Conflict. His passion is teaching peer mediation and conflict resolution to students and faculty, as well as assisting in the creation and coordination of peer mediation programs. Jason received his master's degree in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building from Cal State Dominguez Hills and his mediation training from Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Please welcome Jason Harper.
Thank you very much, Sally. I appreciate it. I want to say thank you to KMC for having me, and also congratulations to KMC for an amazing symposium this week. Being able to pivot formats is not easy, and I commend them for their ability to do so. As far as our time this morning, I've had the privilege of meeting each of these students during their high school careers, so I'm very much looking forward to hearing their reflections on their high school careers and what the new phase of their lives looks like now. So allow me to introduce these amazing students to you. I'll start with Sarai. Sarai Benitez first became involved with peer mediation during her junior year of high school after she had gone through traumatic bullying. In her first year, she mediated over 50 students with her fellow mediators, and that earned her new problem-solving skills and deepened her compassion. Wanting to help more, Sarai began to take on more referrals, including from people who felt they had conflict within themselves. She found that the students felt much more safe and comfortable speaking to a peer about their emotions instead of a staff member. By the time she graduated high school, Sarai felt peer mediation completely changed her life. Sarai is now pursuing a career in music therapy and just completed her second year at Cal State University, Northridge. Sarai, thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Will Hoadley-Brill. Will just finished his second year at George Washington University, studying peace studies and Spanish language, literature, and culture. Throughout his school and career, Will has been involved in peer mediation and peace education. To that point, he was a founding member of Upstanders, which is a peer mediation group at South Pasadena Middle School. After transferring to high school, we'll notice that the campus lacked programs that taught empathy, emotional intelligence, and conflict resolution skills. And motivated to help his peers, Will started the South Pasadena High School Mediators, an organization that focuses on conflict resolution, peer assistance, and promoting mental wellness. After graduating in May of 2021, that's next year, look out, Will plans to pursue a career in peace building, whether that be through education, entering the nonprofit sector, or pursuing a postgraduate degree. And finally, we have Dakota Lief Hamilton. Dakota is a rising junior at Virginia Tech, double majoring in philosophy and sociology. 4 words that describe Dakota are kind, optimistic, determined, and achiever. Additionally, these characteristics directly correlate to Dakota's mediation style. Dakota started mediation as a junior while attending Pacific Palisades Charter High School. In the newly established Pali Peace Posse, say that 3 times fast, Dakota Hamilton sharpened his tools of conflict resolution while spreading peace around Pali's campus. Dakota Hamilton has 4 pillars that he stands by, that being peace, love, positivity, and truth. Even if Dakota is not active in mediation at the moment, he still uses what he learned in his everyday life. Spreading peace wherever he goes, showing people that love is the way, being positive no matter how many clouds are covering the sun. He's always seeking and uncovering the truth one moment at a time. I am honored and privileged to have each of you on this panel today, and I invite each of you to speak a little bit about your experience. We'll start with Sarai, then we'll go to Will, and we'll end up with Dakota.
Okay, thank you for having me again. I was really lucky to do this last year, and I was really excited to do it again this year. So I am from a low-income family within Koreatown and downtown LA area. So I live in this place called Pico Union, and it's like in between both, but no one ever knows where it is. But growing up, I was surrounded by mostly Latinos. So when I went to middle school, my mom was a housemaid in Beverly Hills, so I was forced to go to school in Santa Monica. So I think that's where I began to kind of shut down and just try to be a person pleaser. I would do whatever anyone told me. I was trying to like hide behind the view of everyone. And it's something that I've learned within my family, just to, be nice to everyone. So going into high school, I really had this set idea that I wanted to be true to myself and show everyone who I was. So high school was where I started to really come out of my shell. And sadly, I had this incident in 10th grade where a friend of mine that I had for the past 4 years decided to bully me. And I think at that point, that was the first time I've ever been in like a confrontation. So I fell into this deep, like sad place where I didn't know what to do. I was confused in life. I didn't really feel motivated to go to school. And I remember that whenever I would be at school, I'd avoid eye contact. I'd either look at the floor or I'd look at the walls at the posters that we had. And there's this one day while I was going to one of my classes that I saw these posters, and they were very colorful. Each of them seemed like they were colored by a different person. So being curious, I went up to see the poster, and it was a poster for peer mediation. This was a program that I never really heard of, but it just kept on catching my eye. I'd find them in the bathroom, I would find them on the stairs, in really random places. So within a week, I found myself in the dean's office for the first time, looking for application. And when I learned what peer mediation was about, I really got motivated to want to give to others because I had just gone through a really traumatic event. So I signed up and got in, and that really started a big part of my life. In 10th grade, I also decided where I wanted to take my career. Before, I wanted to be a pediatrician, but I realized I was scared of blood soon after. So I wasn't for sure where I wanted to go. And music was something that I was so used to hiding from everyone. But taking peer mediation, being part of that group, really helped me realize that I wanted to help others. And it also helped me realize that I was really into mental health and supporting that community, especially in high school and teenagers, because I found it very apparent that the school didn't really have a grasp on how to handle situations like that. Yes, we had a school psychologist and everything, but students would always feel like they were forced to just say there was something wrong with them, and then they would just do paperwork. So I found myself my senior year deciding to take this challenge on and telling my friends, if you ever have like a situation or if you ever feel like you need to talk, you can go to peer mediation. And at first I didn't think it was going to be such a big thing, but at the end of my senior year, I realized that creating this system where you don't have to come to peer mediation with another person, you can come even if you have a conflict with yourself, that really motivated me just to continue with this mental health. And yes, I'm not doing peer mediation right now, but I still incorporate peer mediation techniques into everyday life, especially in my department as a music major. It's a very interesting community from different places, and we've all been taught to hide our emotions and just practice our instruments, practice our music. So coming into college, it was very different for me, and I had to adapt and learn to teach others how to use these techniques that I was so lucky to learn in high school. And so far, I, again, haven't done any peer mediation, but I am trying to get more involved, and hopefully after I graduate, I can find something that can mix all my interests together.
Thank you very much, Sarai. That sounds amazing. Will, please speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarai. I, as a fellow peer mediator, can say that I find many parallels in your story and mine and our motivations. And I'm sure from all three of us, you will hear similar parallels. Of course, though, we do have a bit of different stories. But before I get started, I would like to thank all of you who are here. I know I can't see you, but I can see the little number on the bottom of my screen, so I know you're here. I would like to thank all of you for taking the time to come join us in this virtual space this morning. I know a lot doesn't feel normal right now, and a lot doesn't feel like we have, much of the time it doesn't feel like we're able to gather in these community spaces. But what we are seeing right now, what you are doing right now, is redefining our sense of community and redefining what it means to be a part of a community. And here in this space, we are creating this community around peace and conflict resolution during this time when, honestly, it is needed more than ever. So I would just like to address and also thank you for creating this power of community in this time. It really is, it's raising my spirits to see that there are so many people who are passionate about this topic. Before I begin with my own personal journey in peer mediation, I'd like to tell you a quick little story that happened to me, I think 3 weeks ago, but who knows. And I haven't been a formal peer mediator, part of like a peer mediation organization since high school, so for 2 years. But a couple of weeks ago, I received a text message from one of my former co-peer mediators, who honestly I hadn't spoken to in a really long time. And the text read, "Thank you so much for starting the Peer Mediators and changing my life." That's a quote. I'm reading it from a document. And when I received that text message, obviously I was a little bit caught off guard, not because I wasn't absolutely appreciative and grateful, but because I usually don't receive texts like that 2 years after I've been a part of an organization. And so naturally, I asked what prompted this message, and she responded that she was talking to her sister about her sister's friends and school conflicts and things along those lines, and she realized how much joy and meaningful lessons that she learned as a peer mediator. I do not share that anecdote to bolster my ego or demonstrate how great I am. That's really not my goal here, but rather to demonstrate the significance and the importance of peer mediation as a practice, not just for peer mediators themselves, but for their families, for everyone that they know, for their entire school community. And I like to share this story because it's one more voice, one more example, in addition to us three, of the benefits that can come from this. And of course, I also want to share this because it is the reason that I started the peer mediation organization at South Pasadena High School. And it's the reason that I'm so passionate about peer mediation programs existing in schools. My mission was to create a space where students felt that their voices were heard, prioritized, and that their ideas were actualized, which oftentimes students don't feel is their reality. My personal journey with peer mediation began in 6th grade when the advisor for our associated student body organization at South Pasadena Middle School approached me and asked if I was interested in helping people. I think it's pretty generic and vague to say that that is what peer mediation does, but really at its base, that's what it does. And obviously, as a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 6th grader, I said, absolutely, I want to help people. Who wouldn't? So me and about 10 of my peers began to meet every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. in my 7th grade science teacher's classroom. And that's how you know I'm dedicated to this. 7 a.m. for a 6th grader is quite difficult. But we gathered, we discussed issues that affected us as students. We discussed issues that touched our campus and our student body specifically, and we decided to take action. I really found a community. I found a group of people that shared similar values, similar interests, and understood the value in the lessons that you can take away from peer mediation in middle school, which I think a lot of adults, not educators typically, but a lot of adults would not necessarily assume that middle schoolers would be capable of finding that community and strengthening that community. But trust me, we were. So when I got to high school, South Pasadena High School, I noticed that that wasn't necessarily the case. Students were overwhelmed by the pressures of a high achieving school district. That includes being expected to take a bunch of AP courses, extracurricular sports, apply for college, do all of the things that you're expected to do in a high achieving school district. But there was not really a voice or a pressure for students to prioritize their relationships with one another, their relationships with teachers, administrators, and their own social and emotional well-being. And I think that that is a symptom of high achieving school districts everywhere, but also just school districts in general, right? Entering high school adds a whole nother layer of, wow, it's about to get real. I have to figure out what I'm gonna do after I graduate. I also have to create social structures. I have to build relationships with teachers, and I have a family life. I have a social life. It gets very difficult. And these standards, these expectations, these pressures forced students who conformed to tire themselves out, and students who did not necessarily find their place in this structure, in this archetype, to fall through the cracks. I like to say that at my high school, in fact, this is actually a concept that I am borrowing from my 10th grade history teacher. South Pasadena High School is actually 2 schools. There are students that do conform to those high achieving standards and really do try and strive for what is considered success, and students who do not. And it is those students who are often who feel unheard, who are not represented, who aren't in those spaces where students get to voice their opinions to administrators and adults. So I created the South Pasadena High School Peer Mediators for those students, for students of all backgrounds, a diversity of backgrounds, regardless of their academic success, their desire to go to college immediately out of high school, their family life, whatever it may be. Because oftentimes, unfortunately, it's difficult for students, regardless of their academic standing, to find an adult on campus or a group on campus where they feel that their voices are truly valued. So my motivation was initially, obviously, to give students a space where their voices were valued. And I am always grateful to KMC for giving me this space, because it really does show me that there are adults, there are educators who are interested in creating those spaces. But I quickly realized that that was not the only thing that was needed for my peer mediators, for students. What was also needed were skills, or a place where skills that aren't traditionally emphasized or taught in a classroom are taught or are trained. In fact, these skills are often subordinated to more hard skills that are used in the workplace. These are the skills that are not taught include empathy, communication, conflict resolution, interpersonal communication, and being able to verbalize emotion, having a toolbox for when you face conflict, or when you face interpersonal conflict as well as internal conflict. And honestly, the older I get, even though I'm not that old, the older I get, I realize that these skills that are often not prioritized, often not taught, are the most necessary prerequisites in life. And I don't just mean in the workplace, and not just in an educational setting, but in every aspect of your life, right? In every relationship that you have with anybody. So I think my mission now, as I take these skills that I imparted onto my fellow peer mediators, and I learned myself from peer mediation, is to integrate them into arenas from which they're typically excluded. Learning, for example, should not be emotionless. A career should not be free of feeling. And educational institutions, I believe, have an obligation to amplify the voices that they are there to serve. And those people are its students. So for me, peer mediation gives students the skills to express themselves, to use their voices. And peer mediation organizations give students the space where those voices can be heard, where those voices can be listened to. And as we all face a world uncertain, I think these skills are the most necessary now. There is not much that we know about the future, but we do know that there will be people, and we'll have to interact with them, right? We will have to figure out how to move forward when there are conflicts, when there are different perspectives. So for me, peer mediation, it was not just something that was really fun and rewarding and meaningful to do while I was in middle school and high school, but it's something that does carry and will carry me through everything that I will do, and everything that I do in the present as well.
Thank you very much, Will. And if I may add, I understand that you're graduating in May of 2021. You can take that whole speech and just transfer that right on over to the commencement address next year. Dakota, let's hear from you.
First off, I'd like to say thank you for everybody who is attending, and just everybody who just loves peace and trying to resolve conflict. Ever since I was a child, naturally, I would try to be peaceful. I would try to be loving. I would try to be positive and uncover truth. That's why those are my pillars, because now that I'm 20, I aware that that's what I've been doing since day one as a child. So during my whole childhood, I would always try to solve people's problems or be the positive one, always carrying people and trying to make sure that they were all good, and trying to make sure that everything was, positive and loving. But I just never knew where I should take these skills that I've naturally were given to me, and actually how to use them. But then when I was a sophomore at Palisades Charter High School, and I got a recommendation for a peer mediation group that they were creating, Pali Peace Posse. And they told me what it was about, because I never knew what peer mediation was. But once they said peace resolving conflict, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. This is everything I stand for. So I was like, okay, let me try this out. So during the summer, we had a whole little training session, and it literally sharpened my tools and knowledge, and it made me aware of actually how to solve conflict. And it's about basically seeing everything eyes unclouded, and making sure that individuals can actually solve their own problems, and not just us. That's why we are the mediator. We're not actually going in and telling people what to do. I realized that if you can help them, guide them to see through their eyes, this is a conflict and how to fix it, then not only that they can take those tools to fix their problems throughout their lives, they can fix the problem at hand. They can realize, oh, I can solve conflicts. I don't just need nobody to solve conflicts. So I realize I'm not solving the conflict. I'm a guide. I'm a guide for them to solve their own conflicts, because they have to realize the conflict is in their mind, their perception, their beliefs of why these certain situations are occurring and why they're in these problems. So basically after that, after sophomore year training and then junior year actually doing it, it just became more natural because I was always a person naturally solving problems. Like, for example, during because I played football during high school, during football, I was a running back. And, you know, if you're a running back, you need linemen so they can block for you. But half my linemen did not like each other. So just imagine one half didn't like each other and one half didn't like each other. That's not good at all if you really know football. So I had to mediate and make sure that we were all on the same page. So when it came for game day, that we would succeed. And if you looked at the stats, I got all league for a running back, and most of the linemen actually got all state for blocking and all that. So that just shows our success rate, because if we were just like all over the place, it would have never worked out. So then going to college, every day I just use my peer mediation skills from when I wake up to when I go to bed. But then I was aware of one thing, that actually I was being toxically positive. And that means that instead of being normally positive, I was taking on a lot of AKA mediation challenges while I wasn't mentally stable. And that's not good. Always trying to be positive, even though you're not good, that doesn't work, because then you're not really giving them the best advice, or you're not like ready to actually give them something, like give them the knowledge to actually resolve their conflict. And when I was aware of that, I had to flip my world upside down to realize how to actually maneuver now. And it was really like a challenging time period, because I moved from, because I go to Virginia Tech and I'm in California. So I moved from California all the way from Virginia. So I'm like already like, you know, not scared, but I'm just like, wow, I'm in like this whole new place and it's just like crazy. And then I have to figure out like actually how to maneuver. So mentally, I just wasn't in the right place. And then I had to figure out actually how to still be positive, still how to be me. So it was just a lot of figuring out and pulling things out of my bag that I never knew I had. But when I found out my pillars, peace, love, positivity, and truth, I realized I knew what I stood for. I know no matter what field I go into, that it's going, no matter what it is, I'm going to spread these pillars to people so they can find their own truths and their own paths. Because truth, I realize, is not just one path, and it's ignorant to say that truth is one path only. And trying to convert people to your truth is not enlightenment at all. So that's my little TED Talk.
Now, I want you all to keep in mind that I haven't asked any of these three a single question, right? All of them just talked about their experience and what pure mediation has brought to their lives. And I'm already excited for the future. Just from hearing, you know, everything that they've said up to this point. And I'm sure you are as well. So for any questions from the audience, feel free to type those in, and I'm going to do my level best to make sure that those questions go to our esteemed panelists this fine webinar. And but I'm going to have some questions of my own. And so Dakota kind of talked about it. Dakota, thank you very much for your reflections. I have to admit, you were cracking me up with the linemen, you know, and them having conflict within each other. Now, look, if that's not interdependence, I don't know what is, because if they weren't right, it was going to be trouble for you. I can tell right out of the bat. So here's one of the things that I want to ask each of you. And Dakota, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but if Sarai and Will can speak about it a little bit more, how are you using those peer mediation skills that you learned in high school and middle school in your case, Will? How are you taking those skills and using them post high school?
Well, for me, I've really gotten involved with the CSUN campus. And one program that I'm really in love with is called NSO, New Student Orientation, where we introduce all the incoming freshmen. Usually it's held July and August. And I go to campus from 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. And we just show the students a big tour, show them all the resources. And we have this really special show called Take, where we show the students a peek into the life of a college student and the ups and downs that some of us will go through. And after that, we have this facilitation where we open the floor and just let everyone within the group speak up. And if they've had any issues or anything, we let them pour it out to all of us. And it was very enjoyable just to be part of this program, because most of these kids come from communities where they were never able to speak up. So I always found facilitation the most satisfying moment, because you just see the first minute, everyone's just very uncomfortable, tense, they've never done this before. But after the first person talks, everyone's just open and spilling everything. And we end up staying there till 40 to even like an hour. And within those facilitations, I've had situations where people open up about very personal things, and my other orientation leaders not able to really grasp or continue the conversation flow. I've been able to use my peer mediation techniques that honestly I use every single day without even noticing. And that's one special thing that I realized after my first year of college, because I was in this point where I was thinking, I've learned all these things in high school, but I'm not really using them in college. I'm stuck in the practice room, not really living up to what I brought myself to believe in. So I think there was one situation where it just opened my eyes and told me, no, you're doing the right thing. You're using everything you've learned. And it's just so natural to you that you just can't see it. So for sure, it's amazing bringing these skills to the CSUN campus and also into the music department. Like I mentioned before, we all are very toxic in the way we deal with our emotions. As Will was saying, in high school, we're pressured with so much academic life that we build this toxic field around ourselves, and we become sarcastic about our emotions. And I was witnessing that a lot in college, and I sensed the need to go out there and support. And as Dakota said, I attempted to mediate a lot. And soon I realized I was really toxic to myself and everyone else. So instead of doing that, I decided to teach, to show everyone how to speak to others, how to understand others. Because as Dakota was saying, we all have different perspectives, different backgrounds, and different styles of living. So when you come to a college campus where there's people from all over the world, you clash so easily, and it's not something you're accustomed to. So for sure, peer mediation has been something, the skills of peer mediation, I've been using them throughout all of college, and I plan to use them till my very last day.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarai. Will, do you have an answer for how you're using your skills post-high school?
Absolutely. I think it's a very similar answer. Turns out we have a lot in common. Who knew? But there is not a day in my life, I can say this for a fact, that I have not used skills that I learned through peer mediation. Every single day I use skills that I learned in peer mediation, whether that be interpersonally, whether that be with my family, with whom I am spending a lot of time right now, or whether it be with supervisors at work or coworkers in a professional setting. But even beyond that, I think what's particularly unique is my I've sort of developed such a deep passion for peer mediation that I have made it my major, right? I've made it my area of academic study and academic interest. So although I may not, who knows, but although I may not go into a career of mediation, I think the actual integration of peace into an area of study, into an academic area of study, is something that has been very, very influential in my life and has completely shaped who I am as a person and as a student. I actually entered college as an international affairs major and quickly learned that they tend to study conflict. You study conflict as an international affairs major, and their go-to is not always peaceful diplomacy, if you will. So I found that what I had learned and how I had been shaped in middle and high school was so influential to the way that I saw the world and the way that I saw conflict as an opportunity for growth and relationship building instead of an opportunity for destruction and whether that be relational destruction or otherwise. So for me, it is who I am. How has it affected me? It has affected the core of who I am, the core of how I view the world, and how I interact with others.
Awesome. And Dakota, any follow-up that you'd like to give?
Yes. One thing that I could say that I use every single day is understanding. And it's one thing I learned when I was a peer mediator was to paraphrase everything that someone says to show them that you not just know what they're saying, but that you understand what they're saying. Because someone wants to know that you actually understand what they're talking about, not that you're just listening. Don't get me wrong, people like listeners, but if you understand, it's on a whole new level. So every single day of my life, like everybody else has been saying, like I use these skills, but that one skill is something that I take personally because I have this saying, ignorance causes nothingness, but understanding creates oneness. So if you understand people's perspectives, understand where they're coming from, you can see what they're actually talking about. That's why I see with eyes were unclouded. I'm not biased. I'm not judgmental. Even if it is my closest friend, even if it is my parents' family, anybody like that, even whoever it might be, I'm always non-judgmental because that's how we can actually move on and evolve as a people. So even like, for example, with my friends, if they're having a conflict with each other, I'm just sitting there listening to their whole little dialogue because I know they're not going to get violent. So I don't have to jump in or anything. So they're talking back and forth. And like, when it's a perfect time of silence, I might paraphrase, okay, so his name is Ryan. So I'll be like, Ryan, so you think that this is unfair because da 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 da. And Miles, my other friend, you think that this because da 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 da. Okay, so Ryan, can you see why he would feel like this? Because of this, and that? And they'd be like, yeah, I get it. And then we would just like fix our whole problem like right there. I do it every day. I even do it with myself, with my own emotions, because I say, I'm not crazy, okay? Because you can talk to yourself. I don't think talking to yourself is crazy, y'all. But so I talk to myself all the time because my emotions are visitors. My temple is my house, like, right? So I have emotions that come in and I mediate my own emotions. And I'm like, okay, this, you see, like this way, and this is how I make my decisions. Like, I'm very in tune with my brain, my heart, my whole body. You feel me? Because like my brain's my whole logic state. It's like an office. My heart is like the whole vibe area. My spirit is just, full of everything. It's the whole essence. So once I can mediate my own emotions, because the conflict, like I said, is always within. Once you can do that, you can really take on the world. So I do it every day with myself, with my peers, with everybody. So, yes, sir.
That's really good. That's really good because you're talking about not just interpersonal conflict, but also self-regulation, and that's key. And it's definitely not crazy. I think we all talk to ourselves, in many different ways. Positive self-talk is extremely important and extremely prevalent, and it's definitely necessary, especially during these times. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that we do is answer audience questions, and it's been brought to my attention that we have a question from an audience member. And so we'd love to hear that at this time.
Colette, your mic is open. Please feel free to interact and ask your question.
How did you initially get involved in mediation? I heard, Sarai, you said that, you started it early on, but what do you think was the motivating factor? Was it the posters you saw, the fact that you felt you needed to be heard, or you were lost? What actually got you involved, and then how did you recruit others to become involved?
That's a really good question. At first, it was just me looking for something to distract myself. I think that's why I filled out that application. But stepping into training and being taught all these things that I had questioned about myself really opened my eyes and just made me excited for this program. I was very close to transferring schools because I just felt like I didn't have a community there. And peer mediation, and especially the dean who was the leader of peer mediation, she talked yesterday, Karen Crowley. It really became a sanctuary for me where I felt that I could speak about everything and be open, even if I knew I was having a turmoil within myself. And the dean's office became a place where I just would be able to go and say, hey, Miss Crowley, can I have a mediation? Can someone help me out? So yes, at first it was just a distraction, but it soon became something that was just a sanctuary for myself.
Thank you. And how did you recruit your friends? This could be to Dakota or to Will, to anyone. How did you recruit friends, if you did, to join the peer mediation group?
Well, you want to go first, Will? Okay.
Got it, Dakota.
How I recruited friends, it was a mixture of people who were on my football team who saw what I was doing. They were asking what it is, and I would give like a detailed spiel on what it was. And they were like, ooh, that's really interesting. How do I join? I was like, oh, you go to here and then you do this and then boom, you have to do training, you'll be good. And then also I did training for the next generation of people who were going to do it, because when I was a senior, I basically helped train the next generation of people. So I recruited people I knew who'd been talking about it for a minute who wanted to join. Or if somebody, because I was very known at my school, so a lot of people always would just come up to me and ask me, how do I do this? How do I do that? And so I would just give them proper information. And then when time came, I told them, okay, we're doing it now. So if you want to apply now, and then we'll do this. So yeah, that's basically how it went down at my school.
Thank you, Dakota. Will?
And one thing that I'll say before Will chimes in, I would like to say that I've actually witnessed Dakota training peer mediators. I came in to visit Palisades High School on their last day of peer mediation training, and I saw Dakota in action, and I must say I was very much impressed. Will, please feel free to answer.
Yeah, very similar tactic to Dakota when we're talking about something like peer mediation, something that relies so heavily on interpersonal relationship building. The way to recruit best, I would argue, is by utilizing those interpersonal relationships that you have on your campus. I think, first of all, staff support is crucial. I'm going to start with this. Staff support is absolutely crucial. However, if you do not have the passion in the student body and the passion in the peer mediators themselves, it won't work. What I found in my experience is that the harder part is actually the first part, is getting that staff support. I actually started the South Pasadena High School Peer Mediation Organization, and I'm not saying that to brag, but rather to let you know that the staff support and administrative support was the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome. And unfortunately, I don't think I actually fully overcame that hurdle by the time I graduated. And I started the peer mediation organization when I was a first-year student at the high school, so it took me 4 years. They're in a better space now, I believe, with administrative support. However, what I would like to say is when students hear what peer mediation is, when they hear what it's about, where it comes from, and they hear the passion from their peers, it is not a hard sell at all. When they really hear it's not just students talking to other students about problems, it's not just like the potential for rumors to start. It's about teaching skills that are necessary. It's about prioritizing your mental wellness so that you can assist others. When you really get to the base of what peer mediation is, students love it. Like I didn't have a single student in my experience that ever pushed back against the idea of a peer mediation. My largest struggle was with staff support and administrative support.
That's really good. That's a very, very good point that you bring up, Will. Administrative support is extremely important, but there's very little to no substitute for the cultural capital that the peers have, the students have amongst each other. And that really shines through in Dakota's answer and Sarai as well. We have another question from another audience member, but before I get to it, Sarai, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to add that at uni, we had this system going where Miss Crowley really liked to recruit people who had been through peer mediation. A lot of my fellow peer mediators, we weren't the best students like 9th grade year, but coming and growing throughout our years, we became examples for everyone else. So I felt that that was a really great way where people would see us who had been mediated by us. And at school, we would wear lanyards that said peer mediation purple, and everyone knew that we were who you had to go speak to if you needed a mediation. So I'd find myself running into a lot of people who would just randomly come speak to me, and some of them I had mediated and others I hadn't, and they'd ask me questions along the lines of, why do you do peer mediation? How do you become part of peer mediation? And I felt like that was a really important part to our peer mediation program, because we didn't want the perfect straight A student. We wanted someone who's gone through conflicts and wanted to make a change. So I thought that was really important, especially thankful for Miss Crowley for looking out for that. Because if we had a program with just straight A's, perfect students, I don't think we would have many people coming to us. So knowing that the peer mediators themselves had gone through issues and have seen their share of situations, it really gave a support to the peer mediation group.
That's a great point, Sarai, and that actually really aligns with something that was mentioned during the peer mediator coordinator discussion during this KMC symposium, and talking about best practices and what that looks like and why it's important that the peer mediators accurately reflect the diversity of the larger student body. And not just from a cultural standpoint, but from an age standpoint to a grade standpoint. It's important that it reflects the entire breadth of the student body, because the students need to be able to identify with each other from the peer mediator to the parties. And if they can't do that, it makes the agreements or the resolutions that much harder to attain and that much harder to stick. There's another question that we had, and I will actually read it to all of you. This is from a attendee that said, after you started mediating cases, what did you wish you had more of in your training to make you a better mediator? Was there anything that you think could have bolstered your mediator skills now that you look back on your career? Sarai, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Will and Dakota.
So within my first mediation, I soon realized that I wasn't as confident within myself as I had thought I was. Yes, I learned a lot through the mediation training, but of course you never get that practice in, and it's never going to be like the real deal. So I've always found myself being the person sitting back. And for my first mediation, I had a mediator who had been mediating for a year. So they kind of took the handle of everything, and I really realized I need to learn how to be more confident with myself, to share and open up, because I can see that in this situation, I'm not supporting or giving anything. So of course, our mediation training was only 3 days. And I feel like if it was longer and we had more of the fundings to make it maybe a summer thing, that might have helped with the confidence. But I learned throughout all the mediations.
That's good. Will?
Yeah, I am going to echo everything that Sarai said. It comes down to confidence in peer mediators, and it comes down to practice. Like, if there's anything that we could have used more of, it was practice, and that requires time. For all of the reasons that Sarai said. So I'm going to use I'm going to briefly use my answer time to instead advocate to you, administrators or teachers who are listening. If you are interested in starting a peer mediation organization on your campus or in your district, or if there is one that already exists, please provide the foundational support for that peer mediation organization to be a class. Maybe not a class if that doesn't work for you. I don't know your schools, but the organization needs to have time. I'm going to contain myself here because it's been 2 years, but the emotions are still very real to me. I spent my entire high school career advocating for the peer mediation organization to be an elective course for credit. And I was never able to achieve that for a diversity of reasons, not going to talk about it. But that is really, like, those number of set hours per week is what peer mediators need to perfect those skills before they go into a real mediation. Of course, the way that Uni and South Pass does it is totally fine, because you gain that experience and you gain that practice through mediation. But I really think that the best tool for mediators to be the most prepared going into their first mediation is just time. It's just time. You don't need to invest a whole bunch of dollars into 6 different trainers coming in and giving your students a bunch of the same material. They just need to have time and space to come together and use those skills actively. So that's what I would say. And hopefully that call to action was received by any staff or administrators in the room.
Thank you very much, Will. Dakota?
Everybody has a gem inside them, right? And as a peer mediator, to uncover that gem with all the rocks, you need experience. You can get all the training in the world, but if you don't have that experience, you will never uncover that gem. So what I learned, basically echoing what they said, it was all about time and experience. So I don't regret or say, oh, I wish I had this during my training. No, they did a perfect job. Now it's just for me to take it on with myself to actually find that gem and see what style works for me. Because if a fight breaks out, no training is going to help you. Like, for example, I remember when I was doing a mediation with like it was like, imagine like a group of people, like one side of people and one side of people, like maybe 5 on one side, 5 on the other side. So we did multiple individual mediations with them. And then we decided, let's bring the whole posse. So we brought this whole posse one group and this one posse. And that wasn't honestly the smartest decision, but we did it. And that happened. And there was a fight, and they weren't listening to the adults. And the adults couldn't really do anything. And when they were about to swap blows, my training wasn't going to teach me to jump in. No, I had to pull them back. No one's going to teach you how to do that. So it was all an experience. And I'm glad that I actually had the respect on the campus. And I started to notice that certain people actually were looking up to what my opinion was and were disregarding what the teacher had to say at all. Well, also, I would like to add that my school, at the end of my senior year, they finally added a course for the peer mediation, and I was happy, a little butthurt, but happy. But I'm glad because it's all about the youth, and it's not about me. It's about evolving. So I'm not that mad about that. I was just like, wow, really? When I'm about to leave, y'all have a class? Okay. But in all, it's all about your experience that will shape your diamond or shape your ruby, shape your sapphire, that will make you the peer mediator that you are today.
Well said, and I'd feel some type of way too if they put in a class after I leave. I understand. I get you, Dakota. This has been amazing. We have a few minutes left, and the way I want to spend our last few moments is from hearing from you and you being able to speak to an earlier version of yourself, right? The version of yourself that hadn't joined a peer mediation program yet. And I'm sure that, this is being recorded and will be replayed numerous times by a lot of different people. And one of those people are probably going to be students that are thinking about joining a peer mediation program or have heard about a peer mediation program and are kind of on the fence. Sarai, Will, and Dakota, what advice would you give to a student that's considering peer mediation?
It's a really good question. Well, first off, I would like to say, don't let anyone push you back. I know that growing up, we have so many people in our life who we feel we have to listen to, and of course we do, but there comes a point where their advices and their support that they're giving you, they start holding you back. So I think it's very necessary to take a step away from all of that and just say, this is who I am. I can make this decision. It's okay if I'm not very good at this thing. I just want to try it out. And it's something that I live by. I've done a lot of things in life. In high school, I was involved in musical theater, orchestra, choir, soccer, you name it, I was there. So I think it's important just to go out and try things, even if it only piques a little interest. Go to an information and figure out more about it and just try. That's all I can say. You have to try, because if you don't try, nothing happens. And what's the worst that can happen if it doesn't work out? So that's my advice.
That's good. That's good. Will?
My advice for anyone interested in joining a peer mediation program or starting a peer mediation program is know your why and stick to it. That is not an innovative piece of advice. You could find any self-help book with that sentence in it, but it is, and I don't mean it in a surface level way. I mean, why are you doing this? Why are you waking up? Why are you putting all of this energy into something you don't know will be successful? Why? And every single time in high school when I faced an issue, I faced a time when I really thought, you know what, this is it. This organization, this is its last day. I had to remind myself why I was doing it. I had to remind myself what its value was for other students and for students that I have never and will never meet. It's crazy to think that the organization that I started 6 years ago, oh my God, I'm old, 6 years ago, now has students who are a part of it that I've never met, that I don't know, because really we were a family. And so the reason my why was what is happening now, so that students forever, for the history of South Pasadena High School, will be able to have the life-shaping experience that I had.
That's good. That's good. Dakota?
My advice would be to follow your gut, which means is if you hear about peer mediation, sounds interesting, your gut feeling says do it, because you never know what you could find, because you achieve lessons and blessings in every experience that you encounter. 2, that if you listen to your gut and it says, nah, it's not really for me, that doesn't mean that you're not about peace and conflict resolution, because you can solve any problem and you can spread peace and light through anything you do. You just have to actually shine the light through that funnel of whatever thing you're doing, whatever platform, whatever career you're going through. So don't feel like a bad person if you don't want to be a peer mediator. No, you have to know who you are and know what you want to do, but then shine your light through that. So just follow your gut and you'll achieve what you want to achieve.
That's good. That's good. We've heard a lot of great things from this particular group, namely, reflecting on their experience as peer mediators. They're wise as to understanding why they joined that program in the first place, how they've adjusted to the new surroundings that the university level has brought. I mean, two of them have, traveled across the country to continue their education, and all the different cultures and communication styles that they've encountered up to this point. But more than anything, we've gotten some encouragement from these great students. They've taught us that, hey, trust your gut. They've taught us that, advice can only go so far, and you have to just give it a try. And we've also learned that you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing, why it's important to you, and to paraphrase something that that I have used in my life, and it's got me fairly far, which is, if you keep showing up, good things will happen. I want to thank all of our panelists today. I want to thank all of our audience today. This has been amazing. Hopefully you all take some type of nugget from all the things that you've heard today. And again, my thank you to Kids Managing Conflict. My thank you to Ann Sawyer. My thank you to Sally Patchen. I'm Jason Harper. This has been hearing from the mediators in their own words. Remember, conflict is inevitable, but combat is a choice. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sally and the KMC team. This could not have happened if there wasn't a bunch of people behind the scenes that are passionate and give their time and dedication to this. So, and I appreciate you mediators so much. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences and being so vulnerable and sharing that, because they are very personal. And as we said earlier, all of these recordings will be made available online after the conclusion of the symposium. And we really hope to see you again next year for our 4th annual symposium. And then we also have, Jason, you probably can confirm the date, we have the celebration of peer mediation, which will be online June 7th. Am I correct?
June
10th.
June 10th.
June 10th. And so
10th.
more information will go out about that, and you'll get more information from more peer mediators as we celebrate them on that day.
And I would just like to say thank you to Will and Sarai and Dakota. Now it just shows why we do what we do. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Love.
Thanks.